Welcome to Tino's Time Wrestling. And on this episode, it's time for your boy Tino to recap the last two nights in the WWE. That was the 2021 WWE Draft. And the draft started off this past Friday night on SmackDown on Fox. And as we talked about it in my preview, I was really hoping that there was going to be a different way that they were going to do it. Maybe we were going to see two general managers. Maybe we were going to see something different. But in the past few years, Stephanie McMahon has come out and just read off the names. But instead of Stephanie this year, because she probably wasn't there, Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce, the two people that have been on-screen personnel and authority figures, were the two people. Adam Pearce read off the Raw superstars, and Sonya Deville read off the SmackDown superstars. So in the first round started off the night of Friday Night SmackDown, and in the first round, for the first overall pick, SmackDown took the head of the table, Roman Reigns. For the first pick for Raw, they took the WWE Champion, Big E. For the second pick for SmackDown in the first round, they decided to take the Raw Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair. And for the second pick in the first round for Raw, they decided to take the EST, a WWE, Bianca Belair. And that means Bianca and Charlotte Flair switch brands. And, that was okay. That was kind of cool. And, I'm kind of happy for the EST now that she's on Monday nights. Charlotte Flair seems to switch back and forth every year, but we don't want to get too much into that. Hopefully, just though that Becky doesn't get drafted to Raw. Even though I think that she will, hopefully Becky and Charlotte just don't switch titles like we saw a few years ago with the tag titles. That would just be ridiculous. After the first round of the draft, Roman and Brock had a confrontation, and we found out, if you didn't hear already, we are going to see the Beast, Brock Lesnar, versus the head of the table, Roman Reigns, at Crown Jewel in a few weeks on a Thursday, 1 p.m. on Peacock and the WWE Network. So you don't want to miss that. After Roman and Brock's had a confrontation, we saw Kevin Owens versus Happy Corbin. And Happy Corbin ended up winning this match. And I'm very sad because I've heard rumors that Kevin Owens is getting jobbed out like Aleister Black did, like other people that have went to AEW have. And it's not that I don't want to see Kevin Owens in AEW. I just really love Kevin Owens, and as a diehard WWE fan, I just really hope that Kevin Owens does not jump ship and he goes over to AEW. But in this match, Happy Corbin with the rename Madcap Moss got the win, and he picked up the win, and he jobbed out Kevin Owens. And it's one of those things I really hope that doesn't happen, but his contract is up in a few months, so we'll have to see what happens, but hopefully not. After that match, we saw the second round draft picks, and to start off the second round, SmackDown decided to draft the guy that helped and led Raw through the pandemic era, Drew McIntyre. And that means Drew McIntyre is now on SmackDown on Friday nights. That will be real interesting. For the first pick in the second round for Raw, they took RK Bro. They won all their championships. They made sure to take Big E, and now they want their tag team champions back. Also, after that, in the first round, SmackDown decided, you want to take RK Bro Raw? We're going to take the New Day. And they decided to take Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, and that means, sadly, the New Day will be split up again, like they were last year when Big E was drafted to SmackDown and the New Day was drafted to Raw. In the second round, the last pick for Raw, they picked up the rated R superstar Edge. Edge went now, and he went on from SmackDown, and now he's on Raw. Edge, we'll have to see what happens. Maybe we'll see him versus Big E. That'd be a really cool match. Speaking of Edge, though, after the match and after the second round and after Edge was drafted, we saw Seth and Edge face to face. Edge and Seth, they're going back and forth. Seth Rollins even went into Edge's house, and he laid on the couch, and he was making himself food, and he was feeling himself, and he was looking at all his championships, and he was just walking around the Edge's house like he owned the place. He was looking at these kids' stuff and all the drawings that they made. Edge just had Seth Rollins chilling at his house, and Seth felt like he was at home alone and feeling good. I didn't know what was going on. But I've also heard a rumor that we will be seeing Edge versus Seth Rollins Part 3 at Crown Jewel. So if that happens, I'm down for it, because those two, every time they get in the ring, they put on an absolute instant classic. So hopefully we do see that. After Edge and Seth Rollins had their face-to-face, we saw the most beautiful woman in the world, Carmella, versus the real most beautiful woman in the world, Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan versus Carmella. And, this match didn't last too long, and in the end, Carmella ended up winning. And I really hope that Liv Morgan, she's had a really good run, and she's been fighting nonstop back and forth with Zelina Vega, Carmella. She's had other matches with other people, and she's just done good in all of them. So I really think that she deserves to get a really big top run, and I hope maybe that we see her versus Charlotte. Maybe Charlotte will keep the Raw Women's title on SmackDown. We'll have to see. But there is one thing I forgot to mention, if you did not know, that all these draft picks for some reason do not go into full effect until the Friday after Crown Jewel, which doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't understand why we just didn't do the draft that Friday then. I don't understand why they would just do it and then push it off and then wait a few weeks. I don't make the rules, but I guess that's what's happening. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves in the draft, remember that these draft picks will not go into effect until after Crown Jewel. So if you see Big E on SmackDown this upcoming week, don't be like, wait, I thought he just got drafted to Raw. No, he is drafted to Raw, but for some reason they just don't go into effect. So after Carmella beat up Liv Morgan and she put on some type of weird mask and glamorous mask and glitter mask, we had the third round of the draft, and the third round started off with SmackDown selecting Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. Why is he named Madcap now? What was wrong with Riddick Moss or Roderick Moss, or what was wrong with that? Why couldn't we just why do we got to change people's names all the time, Vince McMahon? I just don't understand it. In the first pick in the third round for Raw, they decided they wanted more championships, and they decided to take Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH, the women's tag team champions. And hey, Raw's just stacking up the championships. After the Raw Women's Championships were picked, we got the first call up from NXT. We saw the pick that nobody saw coming. We saw that the debut of Hit Row is going to be on Friday nights on SmackDown. We saw AJ Top Dollar, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and B-Fab get drafted to SmackDown. And if you don't know, Isaiah Swerve Scott is still the North American champion. So it should be real interesting to see what Hit Row brings to Friday nights. And to end the third round, Raw took Keith Bearcat Lee. Keith Lee has returned, and hopefully Keith Lee gets a big opportunity and gets a title run. If Shinsuke Nakamura gets drafted over to Raw, or if Damian Priest stays over on Raw, whichever the case is, I would really love to see I would really love to see Keith Lee get the opportunity to fight for a mid-card championship, because we really haven't seen him do too much, and it's one of those things I would really like to see Keith Lee get the opportunity that he rightly deserves. But after Keith Lee was picked, we saw the main event match that was Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. These two put on an absolute show. These two beat the hell out of each other for a good few minutes, but, of course, there's got to be some interference. Charlotte comes out, Becky comes out. Becky was at ringside, actually, I'm sorry. Becky was at ringside, Charlotte's got to come out, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But, in the end, Sasha Banks ended up defeating Bianca Belair, and, the boss is back, and we'll have to see. She was not eligible to be drafted this past Friday, but she will be allowed to be drafted this upcoming Monday on Raw. So we'll have to see if Sasha stays on SmackDown or if she goes right to Raw, and Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks can continue their feud. And then after that, or I think it might have actually been before that match, it was either before or after the match, we saw the fourth round. For the fourth round, in the first round for the first pick in the fourth round, SmackDown selected Naomi feel the glow. Naomi is back on SmackDown. And for the first pick for Raw in the 4th round, they decided to take the Mysterio family, Rey Mysterio and Dominic. Welcome, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio and Dominic, you switch brands. And honestly, I hope we see Dominic turn on Rey and we see that father-son match that everybody wants to see, and that would just be so cool. Another superstar, actually another older superstar that was drafted by SmackDown, like Raw just took the Mysterios, even though Rey's not, you know what I mean. But SmackDown decided to select Jeff Hardy, the Swanton Bomb, Chris Minette, oh my god, I can't even say it. Jeff Hardy, the Swanton Bomb doing guy, the thing, he's the best in the world. Jeff Hardy got put over to SmackDown, and then we saw Jeff Hardy get into a confrontation with Brock Lesnar, where Brock Lesnar said he's not on Raw, he's not on SmackDown, he's a free agent, so he's going to show up on both brands, and he just might make WWE, Raw, and SmackDown a living hell, and he's going to make SmackDown even more a living hell because he wants to get back at Paul Heyman for making Roman Reigns the guy when Paul Heyman was the guy, and maybe we should just put Paul Heyman in a briefcase, or put briefcase custody of Paul Heyman and see Roman and Brock fight at Crown Jewel. I'm down for that, but the last pick in the 4th round for SmackDown, or for Raw on SmackDown, was another NXT call-up. We saw the call-up of Austin Theory. If you don't remember, Austin Theory was on Raw a few years ago with Andrade and Zelina Vega, but then he kind of went and he kind of faded away, and now he went back down to NXT. He was in the way with Dexter Lumis, Indy Hartwell. I mean, Dexter Lumis isn't really in it, but now that he's married to Indy, he's kind of in it, right? With Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano. But it's nice to see that Austin Theory is going to get his call up, and he's going to get the opportunity that he rightly deserves, and hopefully he's another one like we talked about with Keith Lee a minute ago. I'd really love to see him get the opportunity and see what he can do on the main roster, and hopefully he doesn't get wasted like a lot of the NXT superstars do. But after the 4th round and everything, and after that match with Sasha and Bianca, we saw at the end of SmackDown, Charlotte Flair came in the ring, and Becky was up by the announce table as we talked about. She held up her title, Charlotte held up her title, and that's how SmackDown ended. And then after SmackDown, we saw more people get drafted on Talking Smack, and we're not going to go over this by rounds. I'm just going to name all the superstars that went to Raw and went to SmackDown, and then we're going to get into night 2 and talk about all the draft picks that happened on night 2 on Raw yesterday after 2 nights. That was the amazing thing that was the WWE Draft. So let's get started. After on Talking Smack, we saw Nia Jax, John Morrison, the Drip Queen, the Drip King. I don't know why I said king or queen. He's the Drip King. Happy birthday, happy belated birthday, John Morrison. We saw Zelina Vega, T-Bar, just T-Bar got drafted, so that means also Mace was drafted to SmackDown. We'll get into Mace in a minute, but that's a tag team that they broke up, so hopefully we can see the return of Dominik Dijakovic, and that would be awesome because that's what he deserves. We also saw Raw draft Reggie. And I have a quick story for you guys. I put a post on Instagram about them, all the superstars that was drafted to Raw and SmackDown, and I got a like from Reggie. I know it's not the coolest thing in the world, but when you get a like from a WWE superstar, it's kind of cool and it's kind of exciting. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks for the like, Reggie. I appreciate it. Let's see if you keep that 24/7 title out of R-Truth's hands, because him and Akira Tozawa and Drake Maverick were all drafted to Raw. Otis and Chad Gable, the American Alpha, the Super Alpha, whatever the heck they want to call themselves. Chad Gable and Otis was also, they jumped ship and they went from SmackDown to Raw. Also, 2 people that went from SmackDown to Raw, it was Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz, however you say it, Commander, whatever you want to say it. Apollo Crews' Nigerian buddy, but You know, they jump ship to SmackDown to Raw. We'll have to see if they do any better on Monday nights. And for the last pick for Raw on Talking Smack that was announced is Raw will be keeping Doudrop. Doudrop, Piper, you are going to be staying on Raw, and let's see what you could do. Maybe we could see you versus Bianca, or let's see you face Becky, or if Becky goes to Raw, maybe SmackDown will have both championships. We'll have to see when we talk about night 2, because Becky Lynch was not eligible to draft until Monday night last night. So for SmackDown on Talking Smack, we saw them get Drew Gulak, Mace, like I just mentioned. They broke up Mace and T-Bar. Hopefully we see the return of Dominik Dijakovic, and that would just be lit. So also going from Raw to SmackDown, we saw Mansoor and Mustafa Ali. Mansoor and Mustafa Ali have been on Raw. They've kind of been doing their tag team thing, and now they're going over to SmackDown. But for the last pick that was announced on Talking Smack before we get to night 2 was Toni Storm. We haven't seen much of Toni Storm since she got drafted, or since she's been called up to the main roster about a month ago. Hopefully now that Toni Storm and like Bianca Belair has been drafted to Raw, and Rhea Ripley and Nikki are staying on Raw, even though they can go to both brands because they're the champions. Hopefully Toni Storm gets the opportunity, because imagine a match between Toni Storm and Charlotte Flair for the Raw or SmackDown Women's title, whatever they're going to call it, once we figure out where Becky goes, when I tell you in a minute when we talk about night 2. So Toni Storm, let's see what you can do on the SmackDown brand, and hopefully they don't waste you like they've done a bunch of other times. Also, the other person I did forget to mention before we get to night 2, the other girl and the other person that was picked up and announced on Talking Smack in the call-up from NXT, it's Aaliyah. Aaliyah from NXT will now be on SmackDown, so hopefully we see her get the opportunity like I just mentioned about Toni Storm. So those were all the draft picks that happened on night 1 of the WWE Draft on SmackDown and Talking Smack. Now that we covered night 1 of the WWE Draft, now let's cover night 2. And night 2 was on last night, Monday Night Raw on the USA Network, and it started off with the man, Becky Lynch, the mom. She came out, she is a SmackDown Women's Champion, and she decided to waste no time, and she said she already talked to the Raw and the USA executives, and she's the number 1 overall pick for Monday Night Raw. So it looks like the man is back on Monday nights. And for the first round, or for the second pick in the first round, the SmackDown decided to take the Bloodline, the right and left head, the right hand man and the left hand man of Roman Reigns, the Usos, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Jimmy and Jay. They're staying on SmackDown with Roman Reigns, the head of the table. Also, SmackDown decided to take the legit boss, Sasha Banks. She's staying on the blue brand, and she looks so much better in blue than red. In the second round of night 1, we saw Raw take Seth Rollins, Damian Priest, AJ Styles, and Omos. SmackDown got Shayna Baszler and an NXT call-up, Xia Li. She is the first ever Asian woman to be on the main roster. I know Asuka is on there, but she is the first woman to be called up, so congratulations, Xia Li. You deserve it. SmackDown also decided to take the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ibar, and Pretty Rick, Ricochet. Hopefully, the jump for Ricochet going from Raw to SmackDown gives him the opportunity, because SmackDown is the land of opportunities. So hopefully we see Ricochet get the opportunity to maybe face Shinsuke Nakamura, the King Nakamura. That would be a really good match for the Intercontinental title. I'd be down for that. Raw also in night 2 picked up Kevin Owens, the Street Profits, and they actually got a 2-for-1 in this one. They got Finn Balor and the Demon King, the Demon, Finn Balor. They got both of them, so it was a 2-for-1 pick. Raw is literally being stacked, and in my opinion, I just feel like Vince is doing this because he thinks that if he puts everybody on Raw, that we're going to like it, but he's not realizing that you're going to have so much talent on Raw that you're not going to know what to do with, because we're going to see rematches anyway, because you don't know how to book this talent. You could have all these guys on there and we could see backstage segments all night long, but we want to see these guys get used. So hopefully Raw also, they are able to pick up and they are able to use these guys, right? Because I just really hope that they do, because we also, like I said, I don't know, we saw Seth Rollins, the Drip King, go over to Raw also, so we'll have to see. But Raw also was able to get Killian Cross, Alexa Bliss, and Gabe Steverson. Gabe Steverson, if you know, he was the Olympic guy that came out and he signed, and so now he is part of the WWE main roster. He is on Raw. In my opinion, it really didn't make too much sense to me, but that's okay, and I don't make the rosters. We'll have to see. Hopefully he is able to be used. And I just mentioned Alexa Bliss. She is on Raw, but she probably will be taking some time off, and maybe she's getting a gimmick change and a character change, and maybe that's what she needs. SmackDown, on the other hand, they got Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza, and they got Cesaro. The Swiss Superman is staying on Friday nights. They also got an NXT call-up. While Raw got some NXT call-ups, we saw SmackDown get another NXT call-up in Ridge Holland. Ridge Holland on NXT 2.0 and NXT, he's been doing his thing, and now he gets a main roster call-up. They also, after Raw, we saw them announce more draft picks. And these draft picks were just, they just showed a picture of them and they showed which brand they were going to. So we saw Mia Yim. Thank God she's back to being Mia Yim and not Reckoning. Thank God. We saw Tamina. That means they broke up Tamina and Natalya. Natalya will be on SmackDown now, and Tamina will be on Raw. I'm kind of happy they broke up that tag team. Speaking of tag teams, though, that they broke up, and maybe this might be good for both of them, Chauncey Blackheart will be on SmackDown, and Tegan Nox will be on Raw. And those are two women that have had two great, and they've had good runs in NXT as singles competitors. So hopefully them going over two brands and doing this and doing that, and I'd just be really happy to see what they can do and get the opportunity. SmackDown also got Jinder Mahal and Shanky. Jinder Mahal, if you remember, he was on SmackDown as the WWE champion about 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I think it was like 2017, to be honest. That was 4 years ago already. Oh my God. Jinder Mahal, anyway, he's back on the SmackDown brand. So maybe we see the return of the modern day Maharaja. I can't even say that. Modern day Maharaja. I can't. Oh my God. I'm sorry. We're not going to try to say that. But you know what I'm trying to say. Jinder Mahal, let's see what he has to do. And he brought his buddy Shanky. On the Raw side, for the last round of draft picks that they announced on Raw Talk, I think I accidentally said Talking Smack, but I meant on Raw Talk they announced these draft picks. I was getting all types of confused. We were talking about Talking Smack a little bit ago. But on Raw Talk, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, the Hurt Business, is staying with Bobby Lashley on Monday Night Raw. We will also be seeing The Miz staying on Raw once he returns from Dancing with the Stars. Do your thing on Dancing with the Stars, Miz. We saw Liv Morgan, after having such a good run in SmackDown and finally getting the momentum. Her and Carmella, I mentioned Carmella a little bit ago. Carmella was also drafted over to Raw, so maybe we'll see those two get back and fight each other. And this is something I talked about earlier. Vince McMahon thinks that he just changes the color and we're not going to realize that they have the same superstars on the brands, because we also saw Raw get the Rated R Superstar Edge, and that just means we're going to see Edge versus Seth Rollins, Part 3, probably at Crown Jewel. And speaking of Crown Jewel, on this past Monday Night Raw, we saw some matches being made. We saw Big E versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Champion. We are going to see Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley in a no-holds-barred match. We are also going to see a triple threat match, if you didn't hear, between Bianca Belair, the man Becky Lynch, and the legit boss Sasha Banks. And in my opinion, we'll talk about in my predictions for that once we get to the Crown Jewel preview show that I'll be doing in a few weeks. But I'm going to give you a little spoiler, and I think that Sasha Banks is going to win that match, just because obviously Raw got the SmackDown championship, and SmackDown got the Raw Championship. So I'm sure they're gonna switch titles, or maybe we'll see Sasha. Hopefully we see Sasha beat Becky and then maybe we see Becky beat Charlotte, or we'll have to see what happens. But, that will just be real interesting. But enough about Crown Jewel. Back to some more draft picks. Jackson Ryder and the Dirty Dogs were also drafted over to Raw. And lastly, the last pick for Raw in the WWE 2021 draft was Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, she was with Mandy Rose on SmackDown, but Mandy Rose is now obviously on NXT 2.0, trying to go after that NXT Championship versus Raquel Gonzalez. That's going to be a great rivalry. I cannot wait to see what happens. We also, this WWE draft was not what I was expecting. I was expecting to see a lot more, and I was hoping that we were going to get a lot more stuff and a lot more things from these people and from this. I just thought we were going to see something different, but what do we expect? We never expect too much in the WWE because they always let us down. So, these rosters are good. They obviously stacked Raw because they want to try to build Raw's ratings, and they don't want to see SmackDown do better, even though SmackDown will probably do better with the superstars that they do have, because we also saw SmackDown get Sheamus. We saw, King Nakamura stayed on SmackDown. There are so many guys that we saw stay on SmackDown and go to SmackDown, and I just cannot wait to see what all of these people do. It's going to be so much fun. The WWE Draft is in the books. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. We did see a lot of roster changes, but we also did not see as many as I thought. And last night while I was watching the Raw, I was just confused on why they were just putting everybody on Raw. But we'll have to see. Hopefully that does work out. We saw Shayna Baszler. I just talked about her, the Queen of Spades. She's going over to SmackDown. Maybe we see her versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's, or for the Raw Women's title, or maybe we'll see Sasha versus Shayna once Sasha beats Becky and Bianca at Crown Jewel. Because remember that these rosters do not go into effect until the night after Crown Jewel. So that is October 22nd. These rosters do not go into effect until then. So until then, we are going to see these superstars stay on their brands, and you're going to be all types of confused. And I'm kind of confused myself, and I don't understand why they did this and why they didn't just wait until the Friday after Crown Jewel to do this, but that's just me. So, these WWE rosters are set, and I cannot wait to see what new opportunities, new titles, new rivalries start and begin. And, for Monday Night Raw, there really wasn't too much other than what we talked about, the draft picks. We saw some matches being announced for Crown Jewel. We saw Sasha Banks come out after the match between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, and we saw, them come out and do, it was Charlotte Flair versus Bianca Belair, and Becky Lynch came out. That was my bad. It was Charlotte versus Bianca. That was still a really good match, even though Bianca Belair won by disqualification, and we saw Sasha Banks come out and beat up Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair and hold up the SmackDown Women's title in all of her blue gear, her blue hair. I want those pants that she was wearing. I don't know what type of pants they were, but I'm all down for it. So I cannot wait to see what happens when these rosters go into effect in a few weeks. I hope everybody enjoyed the WWE Draft. Remember to smash that subscribe button. Go follow at TinoTime1996 on Instagram, Tino's Time Wrestling on Instagram, at Tino's Time 1996 on Twitter. Tino's Time Wrestling on Instagram, Tino's Time 10 on Instagram, Tino's Time on Facebook, Tino's Time Wrestling on Facebook. Go follow all of my social medias. Go smash that like button. Go smash that subscribe button. And until we preview everything that's going to go down at the WWE pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia, Crown Jewel, in a few weeks, this is your boy Tino, signing out.